and welcome to this month's Miracle Conversations. My name is Brittany, and I am an entrepreneur living in Barcelona, originally from Los Angeles, and I'm here with Dr. Dave Asomaning.
Hi, Brittany. It's good to be with you again this month. Thank you for hosting this interview in our series for this year, which is on forgiveness. The whole year is dedicated to forgiveness. So I'm an executive coach, and I live in Florida. And I specialize in supporting CEOs, executives, and entrepreneurs, as well as other leaders to develop miracle mindsets. I think of miracle mindsets as states of mind that lead to improved effectiveness, ease, and fulfillment in the professional and personal lives of the leaders I work with. So it's like, sort of like getting into a state of flow. That's another way I frequently like to describe this. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about lesson 78. And Brittany, is there anything you wanted to tee up for us about that?
Thanks for meeting me here, Dave, and thanks for introducing yourself. I love what you do, and you're helping so many people, including myself, really just unlock our potential and free ourselves from all of the baggage that this world gets thrown on us. So I look forward to these conversations every month, and I'm excited to get into the lesson this month. So sometimes we go through this series, and the topic of forgiveness that we're going over in this year's theme, it's not always directly embedded into the lesson, but I feel like today it's really, really definitively part of the lesson that we're going to cover. So lesson number 78 says, from A Course in Miracles, says, let miracles replace all grievances. And for me, grievances is kind of a lack of forgiving others or situations or yourself even. What would you define grievances as?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking it. Thank you for teeing this up for us. So the heart of the lesson will help us elaborate more what the grievances are, because it's one of my favorite parts of this lesson, where it asks us to do an inventory of things we don't like about somebody else. We're going to pick somebody. So we'll get to that in a moment. But I think in a nutshell, grievances have to do with things that we don't like and things that we resent about other people, in a nutshell. Okay. So things that we either don't like, and that's more generic. So it could be even the way they look, right? And that could be a grievance, the way somebody looks. That could bother us, and that could be a grievance. So it's things that we don't like about other people, or things that we actively resent or feel hurt by, or in pain about, because of what somebody else is doing or not doing.
Right.
This is a huge thing in the Course in Miracles, which you and I keep circling around, and I'm chuckling because it's, the theme is that we are actually the cause of our own pain. This theme that I'm chuckling at. It doesn't really matter what it looks like and how it seems like the other person is the cause. We are always at cause for our own suffering and pain. Not just simply because of how we interpret what's happening. Somebody could have somebody come up and slap them on the street and say, wow, okay, I really have something to learn here today. So this is great, right? Somebody else could be like, oh, that really sucks. Why did you do that? I'm going to call the cops on you. That's not what the Course is talking about as the being at cause. It's not simply how we interpret it, but that there's a certain level of the mind that is actually attracting the version of, the movie that we experience. So anyway, that it always makes me chuckle when I think of it, because it's a bit out there, but I love it.
It makes me remember the just supporting the radical claim that we are to blame for all of our grievances. You meet certain types of people, and they're the kind of people that things always happen to them, or certain types of things always happen to them. They always go on dates with bad guys, or they always, in Barcelona, sometimes people get pickpocketed. I know a couple people who seems like they're always getting pickpocketed. I've never been pickpocketed. So maybe they're not aware of their surroundings, or maybe there's something around in their mind that's kind of attracting this type of experience. But I feel like that pattern kind of validates the fact that it's not always this randomness that's making such things happen to you. It's something within, more likely.
Maybe we'll get to this at some point. It's another one of the more oblique lessons when we think of forgiveness. In other words, it doesn't talk directly about forgiveness per se, but it says that the world that we see is the result of our inner attack thoughts that we have. So everything that we see is a projection of an attack thought from inside, to the point that you were making a moment ago. And that's a very direct affirmation of the fact that every human being is perceiving and experiencing sort of a movie that's of their own projecting, their own making at a metaphysical level. And so even though that's not the main theme of what we're doing today per se, it always undergirds all the different lessons. And I hasten to add, anytime we bring this up, that this isn't really about blaming a victim of a mishap or a trauma or abuse or any of that. It's, we're not blaming people who get victimized in life. We're not saying, oh, it's your fault. There's a difference between saying something is your fault and you deserve to be kicked around because it happened to you, and saying that you can get free from pain and suffering if you are able to get in touch with the underlying patterns that may be attracting it to you. Right? So there's a difference between responsibility and blame. The other thing that I think might be useful to insert here real quickly, we've talked about what grievances are: disliking somebody for something, or resenting somebody for something, or feeling somebody else is the cause of our pain and suffering. Miracles, since this is all about miracle mindset, just want to insert here that this lesson is about replacing our grievances with miracles. And miracles I think of as solutions, as being solutions to problems that seem impossible to solve. Right? So let's say you or me, we have things that we want solved in our lives, or anybody listening, or any of the CEOs or executives or entrepreneurs or the leaders that form the core of our audience. Although this applies to anybody who's listening in any area of life, of course. But let's say you've got really massive problems that need to be solved, but you're carrying grievances about the people who report to you, people on your team, other stakeholders, and you're really resentful, angry, grievance-ridden. Well, this will affect your mindset and how your mindset can generate miracles to solve all the problems that need to be solved within the scope of your leadership to help your organization prosper. And so it's hugely important, because it's easy to get saddled with grievances that don't get released. So miracles are solutions to problems that seem impossible to solve. And this is the whole point of the miracle mindset that we keep talking about all this for. We want that power.
Dave, why don't you explain what this lesson means to you and how all of us can learn something from this lesson?
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Brittany. So in the first paragraph, it says here, I'm reading this on my computer, but again, if you need to find the lesson, you can do a Google search, and there are all kinds of places where you can find this lesson online. It's lesson 78 in A Course in Miracles, right? So it says at the very beginning, at the very top, it says, perhaps it is not yet quite clear to you that each decision that you make is one between a grievance and a miracle. So I like how this lesson starts out in a very binary way. It says that the mind is either preoccupied with or focused on a grievance or a miracle. It's a choice between those two things, right? And I think this is significant in terms of mindset, because many of us probably think that we are in a neutral state a lot of the time, right? Where we're just going about our business, not thinking about anything in particular too hard, but just processing through, our thoughts and our feelings, our tasks, our lists of things to do, things that we've enjoyed doing, things we want to avoid doing, sort of on a daily basis as we go through the day. But this is saying that each decision we make with our thinking process is one between a grievance and a miracle, right? Which probably means that then the times in which we are just sort of passively going about our day, we are in a state of mild grievance that we're not fully aware of, right? And then it goes on to say, so that's a huge point, that we want to be more active in terms of what we're choosing. Are we choosing a miracle or are we choosing a grievance? And then the next point it makes after this is that each grievance that we sort of tolerate or just allow to linger or just pass by in our minds, each grievance, it says here, stands like a dark shield of hate before the miracle it would conceal. In other words, each grievance is hiding or blocking a miracle that's waiting for us about some crucial area of our thought process, our lives at that point. Any reactions to any of that so far?
Yeah, definitely. I had a few visual thoughts. I'm a very visual thinker, so one of the things I thought of is I know that some people are more multitask or multi-thought than others. So if you're someone that's thinking more about one thing at a time, then I guess it's easy to know if you're kind of in that grievance mindset or that, neutral or positive mindset. But if you're like me and you have like a lot of things going on at once, I think of it as having all these tabs open on your computer. And even if just one of those tabs is a grievance, it's going to slow down your computer and it's going to interrupt everything else that you have going on. So sometimes you forget about those tabs that are open. Actually, just before we started this call, you noticed you had too many tabs open and maybe this call would go smoother if you closed down some of those tabs. Of course, none of those were grievances, but that's how you can think about it. And you have to kind of reassess what you have in your, every single day, even if it's just a small thing that, someone said before you walked out of the door of your house in the morning, if you're kind of holding on to these little things throughout your day and you have to close the tab. So that was one of the thoughts that came to mind. Mm-hmm.
No, great. I love it. It's wonderful. I did actually have that experience, as you mentioned, that I had. For some reason, I'm conscientious about my tabs when I'm on Zoom, but today I just had all these tabs open, and you said, "Oh, well, things are kind of sluggish, and there's problems." And I didn't even think, I was sort of passive about the fact that I could have tabs open that could be impeding. So anyway, I caught it, and based on what you had said, and you didn't say, "Oh, do you have too many tabs open" or anything like that, but fortunately, I caught it and I got rid of them. But yeah, great analogy. We have so many different mental tabs. We have things from childhood, tabs open from childhood, from adolescence, from young adulthood, from college, from work, all kinds of things. And I as a quick aside, and I don't want to get into the habit of giving examples that could seem trivial to people, right? I mean, we're talking about people running businesses and having responsibility for lots of organizations, but it's just another tab that could seem trivial but could have a huge negative impact on one's thinking. So I went to the store the other day to get some stuff, and the person was checking me out and putting stuff in the bags, and it was on a carousel. And I went to take one of the items that had been put in, that had been bagged, and the person backed me up, jerked the stuff back from me as if to non-verbally. It didn't say a word, as if to say, "No, I'm the one who tells you when you're ready to take your stuff." So it was like, you're not taking your stuff right now. And she just sort of, and I was like, I looked at her like, wow, this is your domain and you control this domain. But this is like, I mean, this is really out there. I've never seen this before. People will normally let you start loading your stuff on from the carousel where they've bagged it. And I just felt myself enraged momentarily. I was like, and then I said, okay, when she's finished, I'm going to snub her. I'm not going to say thank you to her. I'm just going to take my stuff and make protest. And then I started to practice this lesson. I was like, okay, let miracles replace all grievances. There's a miracle for you. If you hold on to the grievance, you'll block your miracle either now or later. So don't let her get in your way of your miracle. Let miracles replace all grievances. Let miracles replace all grievances. And then when she finally gave me my thing and said, "Thank you, have a nice day," I said, "Thank you, and you have a nice day too." And I might have said it with a little bit of an edge, but it was definitely not the edge I was originally thinking about, And then I was done with it. I forgot about it, except to tell it now as a story where, who knows, I could have gotten more and more worked up. All kinds of things could have happened out of that. So Um, and again, just a quick illustration of all the different tabs we can have open: present, past, deep things, superficial, seemingly superficial things. These are all grist for the mill for this lesson. So, one of the things I really love about this lesson is that it's of great practical use to me when I'm working with my clients. So, aside from using it myself, as I just mentioned, where if I'm getting worked up about somebody or something, and I'm beginning, my psychological engine is beginning to heat up, and I'm beginning to really build up resentment, and I'm beginning to boil, and I'm like, I hate that person, I resent them, I dislike them. As I get going with that, I start saying this affirmation, reminding myself, let miracles replace all your grievances, let miracles replace all grievances. It's amazing when a client comes in and has grievances, and then I'll listen and I'll pivot in my mind to this lesson, right? And that's what we're going to do right now. Then, when I mean I'll pivot to this lesson, I'll become very intentional about the client doing an inventory of what their grievances are, because that's what this lesson recommends as the best practice in the steps that lead to letting the grievances go. So here's what it says. We will select one person you have used as a target for your grievances, and we'll lay the grievances aside and look at this person without the grievances after you've looked at them with the grievances. Then here's a list of the grievances it gets into. Someone perhaps you fear and even hate. Someone you think you love who angered you. Someone you call a friend, but whom you see as difficult at times or hard to please, demanding, irritating, or untrue to the ideal that the person should accept as theirs, according to the role that you set for them. Then it goes on a little bit more. It says, you know the person to choose. That person's name has crossed your mind already. Then it goes on a little bit more to say, our longer practice periods today will see this person ultimately in their divine role without your grievances. But for now, we're going to consider the person's faults, the difficulties you have had with this person, the pain this person caused you, the neglect you've experienced from them, and all the little and the larger hurts this person gave you. You will regard this person's body with its flaws and better points as well, and you will think of this person's mistakes and even of this person's sins. Now, in terms of that last part, it making the distinction between mistakes and sins. So if somebody makes a mistake, that's easier to let go. It's like, okay, this person's screwing up, but whatever, they're learning, they're doing the best they can. So I'll cut them some slack. Now, a sin in the course's system is something that is, by definition, unforgivable. Somebody has done something so bad that they do not deserve to be let off the hook for it. Just no way, no how. And that's what human beings consider to be a sin. Now, in the Course, there's nothing that's unforgivable. But it's just saying that when you do your review of your grievances, in terms of that whole litany of things I went over, it's saying, allow yourself to understand what a person's mistakes are that are bothering you, or even what their sins are, those things you think somebody has done to you that are unforgivable. So, any reactions to that list of things in the inventory? Anything that came up for you as I was going over what I might do for a client when I say, okay, just tell me the inventory. You're telling me a little bit about you're upset about this, or this person got on your nerves. So tell me 20 things about this person and this situation that just drive you up the wall. Tell me what they.
Yeah, I love how vivid the Course was in describing some of these characters that we might want to forgive, because sometimes it's hard to, you can think of more, you can think of someone's sins, you can think of a couple mistakes, but especially the one where it says someone that you call a friend but is very hard to please, and those can be just ongoing nagging grievances. And you don't even realize that they're there sometimes. Sometimes you just come to accept that people bring you grievances, and you don't have to continue to find the person problematic, you don't have to continue to find their behaviors as grievances. You can transition more to acceptance and forgiveness and create a whole new love for that person that brings you more miracles ultimately and just gives you a better experience. So yeah, I've definitely got a list of people I could put down for my inventory, and I'm probably going to do that when we get off of this call together, actually.
Yeah, over time, there will be, as one practices this or other methods for doing forgiveness work, as one practices them, one will develop a powerful, robust way of accepting people and loving them in spite of the way in which previously they might have served as triggers. So it's an ongoing practice and it's cumulative over time and it gets more powerful and it gets more robust where there's a faster and faster way to pivot away from just getting sucked in the same patterns of being triggered and responding the same way and so on.
I can even see on a practical level how that can be so empowering in terms of if you learn how to not expend energy on having grievances with people, you can create so many more miracles just on time and energy alone. So what a superpower to have to get to the point where you've accepted that everyone has their ways of doing things. No one's bad, no one's good. Everyone's just doing what they think is best. Everything is worth forgiving, and no energy should be spent on holding these grievances because it does take energy. So that's very cool to do this practice. I don't know how often you recommend doing this inventory, but I suppose over time, maybe your list gets smaller and smaller because the practice of learning to forgive people becomes easier and easier.
Yeah, I love everything you're putting out about this. So one thing that I do all the time through the day is I will remind myself using this affirmation, let miracles replace all grievances. So that's one way of practicing it is just ruminating on that affirmation over and over again. Then, as I may have mentioned earlier, if I start to feel a sense of grievances boiling up or bubbling up, I'll start saying it more intensely. Let miracles replace all grievances, because that phrase is a portal to this whole lesson and even to the whole course. It's a portal. Once we open it and enter into it, we are reversing the building up of grievances and opening up to all these miracles. So it's an easy, low-hanging fruit type of way of reversing what's going to end up being not so good if the grievances just keep building up. So that's one thing. In terms of the inventory, I have a grievance journal ready on hand in my Evernote. And if I have a blow up with somebody, which I might have once every month or once every, you know, twice a month. I mean, a real kind of, you just pissed me off like there's no tomorrow, and I'm smoke's coming out of my ears, and I'm breathing fire, and I'm upset. I'm really upset. So I'll do a thorough inventory for myself on that, all the things I disliked or hated or resented about the situation, the person, and then I'll turn it over. That's the second part of major part of what this lesson is talking about, which we'll get to. So I advise having a place where you can go regularly, basically, where you journal, you just do the inventory, just get it all out. Which brings me back to something I want to emphasize about this lesson, which is that if you're a student of A Course in Miracles, you have some understanding that the person who teaches these lessons is believed by most of us students to be Jesus, the Jesus who came 2,000 years ago. Who the New Testament is about, that this is the person teaching these lessons in the Course of Miracles. So one of the most empowering things about the Course in general, and this lesson in particular, is that this master miracle worker is saying the first step to letting go of your grievances is to list them all out. I think that that's the coolest thing, like where the master teacher is saying, yeah, why are you tripping? Why are you trying to like stifle yourself and block that you feel this way? Just let it out. Let it. Now, I hasten to add that, and I say this with my clients, and I try to do it myself. Don't unload on the person who's the target of your grievances. Don't go off on them. That's why I do it in Evernote or some other place, or I talk to somebody else, or that's why I encourage my clients to talk to me, because we don't want to tangle with the actual person and vent our grievances with them or to them. it almost never does any good, and it actually generates more harm. So I think what Jesus is talking about here is just do your inventory privately, but allow yourself to get in touch with all the things you hate and dislike and resent about the situation. And the fact that it's Jesus making it okay. And then I'm doing that with my clients. I'm not Jesus, but I'm doing it with my clients when I say, just tell me your 20 grievances about this person. Let it all hang out, you know? And if you can't, there are things about this that you feel you're, a bit shy about saying to me, then do it in your journal later on, So that's one of the things I love, love, love as a practical application of this lesson for myself and my clients. Any thoughts? And then we'll go to the second part of this lesson.
No, I just look forward to doing this. I'm sure it's going to feel very therapeutic. I think that's a good word to describe it because, there must be a balance of letting it out without dwelling on it, and letting it out, of course, prevents you from dwelling on it long term. So I look forward to doing that. I think it's going to be very liberating to kind of assess, like, what are those things? Maybe there's going to be more than I even thought because you're looking for it, Good to get out. I'll transition. And since you brought up Jesus, and I was raised in a Christian household, and my dad always would tell me that, Brittany, before you pray and you ask God for anything, you have to make sure that you don't have any resentment in your heart towards anybody. You have to forgive everyone. Or he didn't say God won't hear your prayers or answer your prayers, but he said that having resentment towards others and not forgiving them does block God from working miracles. He said it in those words. So this is something I grew up hearing, and it's all circling back, and it's a Course in Miracles. It's different. It's all in the same part of the same thread, but yeah, this is familiar to me. And he never coached me to write through it, but I think that's a really good practical application. Mm-hmm.
You are remembering the sage advice from your dad about this. It makes all the sense in the world, and it's exactly what this lesson is saying, right? Which is that we are entitled to miracles. There are miracles available to us, but our grievances will act as a shield of hatred that will block us from experiencing this transcendent, miraculous level even with the person that is the target of our grievances. And I love it. I mean, I love that he gave you such direct wisdom. We talk about Jesus as the teacher, the voice in the chorus. You're talking about your dad teaching you about praying to God, and our audience has people from across the gamut of religious expressions: Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, more New Age, more conventionally Christian, people who aren't religious, may be spiritual, or may not be religious and may not be spiritual, may be very secular. And our process that we do is robust enough in terms of certain foundations that it has that, it can speak to all mindsets, wherever they're coming from. In other words, the point I'm making here is that we have a multilingual way of, air quotes, multilingual way of approaching this, where we can use a language that's meaningful and hearable for different people. So if it's a Buddhist, it's a certain type of language. If it's a Hindu, and again, it's not just flip-flopping around where anything goes, but it's just that there's a universal archetypal underpinning to all of it, and that all different language systems lead to the same place in the end. And so just a mini sort of caveat, disclaimer, explanation for how we're approaching this, and not rooted in or dogmatic about any one particular expression. Even with the secularists, I love people who don't believe in God and don't want to talk about it. I always find, and I say this often in different places, that quantum physics can be very helpful for addressing how they want to approach things, right? Which is in a more empirical, science-driven way, right? And you have something like what's called the participant observer effect. In other words, the participant who's observing something is actually influencing what they're observing, and they're giving rise to specific phenomena that they're observing in their field of perception because of what's inside of them that they're bringing. So without reference to God or spirit or any of that, We have the same basic concept.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because my partner actually, he wasn't very spiritual when I met him, but through learning about quantum physics, actually, he's become quite spiritual. And it's quite interesting to see just how much he opens up and expands his, understanding or, belief in what's possible, what's out there through science. And so I resonate with that. And I love talking about those things with him too.
Really appreciate hearing that, and look forward to maybe hearing more from him at some point on this topic. It sounds like he knows quite a bit about it too. So this has all been the first part of this lesson, right? Which is basically doing an inventory, no holds barred, personal inventory of all the things that are bothering us about somebody. The second part is actually pretty simple. We're just turning to the divine source, and we're asking for help to set the grievances aside and see some sort of spiritual light in the person. Now, we've done this with lesson 121, which is also on forgiveness. Forgiveness is the key to happiness was the headline of that lesson, which we did last month. But there we were just sort of seeing light right away. We weren't doing an involved inventory. The distinction here is that we've done this involved inventory of grievances, and now we're asking for divine help to set the shield of hate, these grievances aside. So that's essentially what the second part is. There is some point at which we pause and we say, I need help to set these grievances aside so I can see the light in the other person, and then begin to really get immersed in the miracle that's in this situation that would have been blocked if I had just stayed obsessed about my grievances. So that's essentially the second part. And again, this is all very applicable to business teams, corporate teams. This is the thing that one of the things that distinguishes this work is how to support leaders who facilitate and build teams at all these different levels that have so much influence in the world to understand and apply these concepts without making the work that they do therapy or anything like that or group process, but just having leaders who understand this and even at a telepathic level can influence their teams at all different levels, because as we all know, teams are notorious for ongoing conflict. Just so much room for conflict and misunderstanding and hurt feelings and political jockeying, and this stuff helps to sort a lot of this out. So that's the second part of this lesson, which is asking for divine help. And I think it's important to ask for divine help because what we're being asked to do as a miracle here, and converting, as you mentioned, from grievance to peace or love or acceptance or any of those positive things, is something that we cannot do on our own. We need higher powers' help to do it. And if we ask, we'll get that help. If we don't ask, it'll be much more difficult. So the third and final part of this lesson, I'll just read and then we can discuss a little bit. So it says at the end, towards the end here, it says, after you've done all of this, God thanks you for these quiet times today in which you laid your images aside and looked upon the miracle of love the Holy Spirit showed you in their place, in other words, in the place of one's own images of grievance. The world and heaven join in thanking you, for not one thought of God but must rejoice as you are saved and all the world with you. So the thing that stands out for me in this paragraph towards the end of this lesson is that God is actually thanking us for what we've been willing to do here in understanding what our grievances are and then setting them aside. Then an extra bonus is that it says heaven thanks us. I'm like, wow, okay, God's thanking us, heaven's thanking us. Then the further bonus on top of all of that is that the whole world is thanking us. I'm like, wow, that seems like a no-brainer to do something that gives us the benefit of having miracles and then receiving God's gratitude, heaven's gratitude, and the world's gratitude. It's like, and then sometimes I'm kicking myself with these lessons. I'm like, is that really true, or is that just some nice, flowery, poetic language? It doesn't really mean anything. And over the years of doing this, I choose to accept this as is actually true, that what we are doing is so metaphysically powerful that, as it says in that paragraph I read, that we're helping to save the world. We're helping to bring the world out of the matrix. We're helping to bring the world out of the simulation of tit for tat. You hurt me, I hurt you back. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You do a nuclear bomb, I do 10 nuclear bombs. You do 100 nuclear bombs, I do 1,000 nuclear bombs. But this is what it's getting at, that the universe is grateful when we stand down from warfare and replace that warfare of grievances with a miracle.
So yeah, thanks for sharing that final wrap up. I think that's such a beautiful. It is beautiful. It is also meaningful. But I can definitely see how God's first, his primary commandment is love your neighbor, and then of course that helps the world become a better place. So I can see how that can be a huge benefit to God, heaven, and the world. So I definitely think it's meaningful.
And thank you for underscoring that. And being a peacemaker entitles us to God's gratitude. And God, the source of the whole universe, is saying, God is grateful to me, the seemingly puny person, because I'm willing to do this. It's like, wow, I mean, who would have thunk it? It's like, so I just wanted to say finally that this lesson is one of my favorite lessons. I have a hit parade of lessons. There are 25 of them. And this lesson is definitely on the hit parade. And it's good to come to these lessons from time to time, even as we try to be thorough with what the course is teaching about the theme of the year, right? So next year there'll be a different theme, and the year after that there'll be a different theme. And then by doing a whole year of one theme, get a lot of different sort of principles and teachings and perspectives on that topic. And we go really deeply into it, which is great. And there's new learning, but then every now and then it's good to go back to some of the familiar hits and favorites. And this is definitely one of those. So I'm glad we got a chance to do this today, Brittany. And thank you so much for hosting this interview, the series of interviews as well, and for today's call and everything you bring to it to make sure that our audience has a good experience with us doing this process. Thank you, Brittany.
And thank you as well for all of your wisdom on your studies on these lessons. These are each lesson is new to me as we talk about it in each show. So I appreciate having you've been revisiting them. So you've got all these different perspectives on each one. So thanks for sharing that with all of us and speeding up everyone's process learning this and people who are watching. So thank you for that. This one, yeah, I'm really excited to take that inventory. So that's what I'm going to be doing today.
If we can remember to, we'll follow up with what the inventory felt like and what came out of it. Again, no pressure on that. But yeah, and I'm glad you thanked our audience too. I'm always grateful that we have an audience to share this with, and that we have people who are dedicated participants in what we do and understand this and know it just as well, if not better in some cases, and that all of this just makes it stronger as a force for good in the world. So thank you, everyone who's been with us, and looking forward to being with you some more.
Yes, thank you, everyone. All right, Dave. Well, it's been great talking to you, and we can wrap this one up, and I will see you on the next show next month.
We're looking forward to the next show, our May show, and looking forward to getting ready for that and being with you on that show as well. Thanks so much, Brittany. Bye for now.